Welcome back. This is part 2 of a 2-part series on the residential building permit process in Hawaii. Getting building permits through has been a nightmare for many people. You look forward to building your dream home. You find that plot of land that you've always wanted, and everything seems doable. So you've already hired the architect, you've got the best plans you've wanted, the contractor's been hired, and suddenly, everything comes to a dead stop. This is a big deal in Hawaii, and unfortunately, it happens all the time. Today, I have with me a very special guest, Doug Bennett, a professional in dealing with safety code and compliance, and he'll be sharing with us the tips and tricks to get your permits through and some critical information that you should know in advance if you're planning to build or remodel. Doug is a consultant for both residential, commercial, and government builds and remodels. So prior to starting his own business, his extensive technical experience came from a combined 32 years. 14 in fire, and 18 in the Coast Guard Reserves, working in code interpretation and adoption, working with federal, state, and county personnel. Now, if those terms sound like Greek to you, you're not alone. Don't worry, they're Greek to me too. But it just means that he knows the Department of Permits and Planning, what we call the DPP, like the back of his hand. He began consulting after seeing such a gap between not just the homeowners, but the home builders and the permitting process. His key services to residential clients, they include finding low-cost solutions and methods that help facilitate the permit process. He guides homeowners and builders through the permit system and processes, and he helps identify and solve issues which reduce the number of reviews, the streamlines the overall process of compliance, so that the regulatory agencies pass through your permits when they review them instead of kicking them back over and over again. In other words, he saves people a whole lot of headaches, a whole lot of time, and a whole lot of money. Doug and I go way back. We used to be neighbors years ago, and we watched each other's kids grow up. He knew us back before our son was even born. Welcome, Doug. So glad you're able to join me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is such a major pain point because the issues with permitting cause a lot of unexpected expense and, of course, long delays with homeowners. Okay, so thanks a lot for getting in depth with all this, right? And there are 3 questions that I want to ask that are really going to be pertinent for some of us deciding to either renovate or build new construction here in Hawaii. Doug, are there special resources or helpful tools that people should know about when they're thinking about the permit process?
Absolutely. So in addition to talking to people such as you and me, there are third-party expediters who specialize in organizing almost every part of the building permit process, with the exception of the fire review. That has to go through the fire department.
Okay.
Or a consultant like me, but it still does go through fire review, but the idea is to use expediters that will take care of everything. They're very well versed in that, and they pretty much, you're going to be paying them a fee, but it's worth it because they save you a lot of time.
Any idea how much those fees are, or do they really range?
It depends on the complexity of the project, the number of pages on your plans, and the complexity of it.
Okay.
So it varies.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So without proper planning, things can happen. People can get in trouble. Can you give us some examples of some unpleasant surprises if you don't follow the proper procedures? And like you said, dot all the I's, cross all the T's.
Absolutely. So occasionally a developer might buy a large tract of land and then subdivide it and sell it off in individual parcels. And there was a case where something like that did happen, and the people purchasing the parcels did not do their homework, and they wanted to build their homes, but found out that they were not going to be able to meet certain requirements without a large capital expenditure to bring it up to code, which they had not anticipated. So because these people did not fully do the research that they ahead of time that they should have done prior to signing the papers or obtaining the loan to buy the land, they really should have looked into everything and made sure that it was a viable option. Because although they bought the land, they could still use it, but maybe not for the purpose that they wanted, which is quite surprising for all of them, I'm sure, because they went in with the intent of doing ABC, The reality was different.
So they bought the perfect plot of land for themselves to build their ideal dream home. And then what happened? What they discover?
That they did not have access and water supply requirements met. And that was a much larger cost than they were, able to afford.
So they basically bought the house, bought the lot, but didn't realize there's no road and there's no water connection or no electricity.
Exactly. There was not, it was just open land. And so they were buying these quote unquote like gentleman estates or something. I forget how the term for it, like 3 to 5 acre lots. And they were unable to develop it unless there was a significant amount of capital put in to build a road that would come within the road and the water supply that would meet fire code. Another example is there were some people who bought a building and they were doing some remodeling, and there was an addition, another room that was not shown on the tax records and the previous information, that all of a sudden something was there that wasn't permitted. So the new buyers had to bring it up to code. So what can happen is if you have something that was not permitted, an inspector can come in and say, okay, you need to get a permit for this, and it has to meet code. So if it doesn't meet code, you might have to tear that existing thing that you bought, tear it down, tear it out, and bring it up to code.
So we're looking at a huge expense, literally like removing an addition. Or
it can be. So Is it possible to have something that was not permitted up to code? Yes. But you still have to go through the permit process to have it as new record. Yeah. So those are some pitfalls to avoid. There's a lot of things like we had talked about earlier. People can do things without permit. But again, as the new buyer, you want to make sure everything has been done. Otherwise, you're taking a risk. And it's our job to provide that information for them so they can make the most educated decision.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, in my many, many years of real estate, like I've never actually seen a homeowner need to take down an addition or something. Right. Have you ever come across that?
Not for that. Sometimes people, they want to do something like they buy a tract of land that has like 2 or 3 homes on it, and they want to do something a little bit different, or they want to make additions or whatever. There's things that can happen that they're allowed to do or not allowed to do. So again, coming in with their ideas and then presenting it to us, we take it to the building department. Does zoning allow this? Is this possible? Would fire allow that? If so, great. If not, what would it take to get to that point? Is it possible? If it's not possible, okay, what are the next steps? Or does your client move on?
Yeah, and this is good to like basically full circle, right? Because we're trying to avoid the pitfalls, the challenges, any discrepancies, any delays, but most importantly, fines to avoid fines, and really expedite progress and save money and time as well. And so this is like full circle coming back to how you help your clients and what to look out for. Can you share again, give it like an overview of what kind of service you provide for people that are looking to do this?
Sure. So can I give an example of one of my clients?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I had a client, they have a wall on their property that technically is on their property, but it is owned by the city.
Mm-hmm.
A portion is owned by the city, a portion is owned by the state, and it's unusual. And they wanted to build a carport with an ADU on top of that.
Yeah.
So going in, talking to the building department, talking to zoning, is this possible? Yes, provided the following. So there's a lot of steps involved. Now, some of the requirements may not be allowed because they don't have the size or the distance, because there's setbacks from property lines. So they're able to make an educated choice on what they want to do. And again, it may work in their favor, it may not, but ultimately knowing what you can do ahead of time, because if they just moved ahead with it and then the building inspector can drive by and see something, go, hey, wait, let me see if there's a permit for this. There's no permit for this. What are they doing? Shut it down, make them tear it down. So I was able to help my client and give them alternative solutions that still met their needs or meet their needs. And it's up to them how they want to go from there. But basically I informed them. I had another client who was interested in purchasing a piece of property, or not purchasing, but renting a piece of property and doing renovations. And it was a commercial piece of property. And looking at all the parameters associated with it, I basically said, here's all the facts, A through Z. I recommend against going into a contract with this because you're going to be limited. You're only allowed to do 10% of the value of your project each year to renovate. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing electrical, you could do your electrical and only be halfway done, and you have to wait a whole nother year. So you can piecemeal it, but it may take you a long time to get to where you want to be. So is that an ideal way to start your business in this area? Probably not. But again, that's the client's choice. I provide the information for them. And people oftentimes, they don't like to hear bad news. But I'm sorry, I'll equate it to like going to a dentist. It's better to get the cavity taken care of than a tooth pulled.
What you're doing is you're adding a lot of benefit by preventing them losing a lot of money, a lot of time, right?
There were parameters where if you had a certain amount of homes, the requirements are X. Once you add an additional home, the requirements change and become more restrictive. The reason for that simply is you're adding more people, more fire load. So it gets a little more restricted because you're making it more congested, more difficult for the firefighters. So an example is, okay, you want to do this, you want to build another home. Okay, you can sprinkler that home and meet the requirements, or you can have an access road and do a hydrant. There's different ways to become code compliant. I'm going to show you the different ways that you can do that. It's up to you to do the research. What's the cost? Like, what are you comfortable with? What do you want to do? I could go more into the weeds on that, but basically I'll provide you the options and you decide which one you would like to do. And then we take that to the authority and present it to them. And because sometimes you do need to get permission from the authority having jurisdiction, which in this case would be the fire department. Can we do this? Here's what we're proposing. We don't meet X. Here's our solution for Y. And then once you get the written reply approving or disapproving, hopefully you can move forward.
And going back to like the residential scenario, right? Let's say hypothetically, and not really hypothetical because this is actually, I have a client right now that is looking for the right plot of land. So they want to find the right lot, and they're looking in the windward side. They're also looking in the leeward side, like couple A. But they identify the property, they found the lot of their dreams, and now they want to build the home of their dreams, right? And they've got the plans, and they come to you. What's next?
Basically, I would look at it, and then I would go to DPP, and I would do the research on the land. Can it be used for what they want? So I would go through all the process with DPP ahead of time to find out, like, okay, can they do what they want? Mm-hmm. That's step one. Step two, I'm going to review from a fireman or a fire inspector's perspective, and I'm going to apply and say, okay, here's what you're allowed, here's what you're not allowed. And does that meet what they would like to do? And so at every obstacle, if there is an obstacle, we'll basically tackle that when we get to it. But basically, starting the process is find out, do their dreams meet the land use? Do their dreams meet all the beginning steps? And then it's a process that has to move forward step by step. And so guide them through that. And basically, once there's enough information gathered to say, go ahead, move forward, or you can, but it's going to cost you, this is what it's going to cost you, or I would advise against it, but here's the information, you make the decision. So it's very complex, and I don't want to get too complex, but basically we'll find out how far can we move forward with this.
And then decide from there.
Do you want to move forward, or what do you have to do to move forward? Is it worth it or not?
Yeah. And when they decide, I think I want to move forward, then at that point, you're like, okay, now we'll bring in that third party to expedite the permit process and all that. Okay.
Right.
Thanks for watching part 2 of our video. And if you think it'd be helpful to having a consultant like Doug come alongside with you in the process, feel free to reach out to him. His contact info is below. If you found this video to be helpful, feel free to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and tap the notification bell. That way you can be informed in the current market here in Hawaii. Whether you're looking to buy in 9 days or 9 months from now, feel free to reach out to us. You can email me directly, you can give me a call, or shoot me a text. We're here to make your move as smooth and successful as possible. Thanks for watching again, and aloha.